Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to the Indo ASEAN Business Summit and Expo, Act East Policy in the Post COVID World, organized by the Ministry of External Affairs and the Confederation of Indian Industry. A very warm welcome to the inaugural session. To begin with the inaugural session, I'd like to invite Mr. Chandrajit Banerjee, Director General, Confederation of Indian Industry, to give his welcome and opening remarks.
Thank you, Renuka, and a warm welcome to everyone attending this, and good afternoon, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. We have a phenomenal panel, if I can say, for this inaugural session. Excellency, the Honorable External Affairs Minister of the Government of India, Dr. Jaishankar, His Excellency Dr. Vivian Balakrishnan, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Singapore, and His Excellency Dato Lim Jock Hoi, the Secretary General of ASEAN. From CII, I'm joined by the President of CII, Mr. T.V. Narendran. And this is a phenomenal group that we have here, ambassadors of ASEAN countries in India, and India's ambassador to the various ASEAN countries, our ambassador to the ASEAN. So a phenomenal group of business from India and business from the ASEAN countries. So Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's really a proud privilege to have this very important session with such luminaries that we have for this session. We actually started this morning a little while back with two packed sessions and very, very important sessions again, having our high commissioners and ambassadors of the ASEAN countries in India, and which was followed by our ambassadors and high commissioner to the ASEAN countries. Phenomenal start on understandings, taking stock, they're getting an update of how we can work together, B2B can really work together, and the perspectives coming from was of great value, because this really refreshes and pushes the button to have a sort of a next level of engagement of India with the ASEAN countries. So indeed, very good start that we have had, and we have such a very senior panel today to talk to us as we inaugurate this session. And collaborations during these times of crisis really has helped in creating a stronger and a more outcome-oriented alliance with ASEAN countries for us, and including smoother physical as well as digital connectivity and higher people-to-people connect. We heard about that in the sessions that we concluded, and aligning with our government's Act East policy. We from CII, we have focused initiatives in the region to enhance business cooperation, trade and investment for Indian industry. And keeping this particular focus in mind, we also have opened some offices in this region. We have an office now functioning in Indonesia, in addition, of course, to our existing office that we have in Singapore, to primarily help our member firms, Indian companies, in accessing these markets and facilitating two-way FDI flows. And from the strategic perspective, if I can see the geographical construct that we have of the Indo-Pacific, that has gained a phenomenal importance, and the India and the ASEAN are really being considered as central. The cooperation between the two sides, of course, would further strengthen the action agenda on the identified issues. The first priority, if I can say, is to really build stronger value chains between India and ASEAN. Both India and ASEAN have many complementary strengths, and our policymakers have been making phenomenal efforts to leverage these for fast tracking connectivity and enhancing supply chain cooperations in post-pandemic era. Rethinking value chains in the ASEAN region we feel is indeed most crucial to support greater international production. And today, India and ASEAN collectively have an important role to play in contributing to the diversification of the global supply chain and making it more resilient. For this, India and ASEAN nations, we strongly believe that must provide policy attention on reducing non-tariff barriers and customs transit issues, greater policy and regulatory cooperation. That will really go a long way in developing a system that is based on robust data sharing and cross-sectoral coordination in the bloc. Uh, many important issues have been covered in the last two sessions, and I will dare not try to sum them up, but we will take stock of all of this because our really working partners from the industry, from the Indian business, are the two segments of the sessions that we have just had, and receiving the overall guidance and overall inputs from our top policymakers and from our government would also really help us take this particular relationship that we are so strongly focused on forward. With that, I'd like to once again really welcome everyone who's attending this inaugural session with our Honorable Minister of External Affairs, the Foreign Minister of Singapore, and the ASEAN Secretary General. Welcome to all of you, and thank you very much for really making this summit so very useful and informative to all the participants. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Banerjee. I'd now like to invite Mr. T. Narendran, President CII and CEO and Managing Director, Tata Steel Limited, for his address, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. Honorable Dr. Jaishankar, Minister of External Affairs, Government of India, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. With the post-pandemic world witnessing a shift in terms of global value chains and the enhanced importance of sustainability and technology, the Government of India has been working proactively in building new strategies and alliances with a very strong outward focus. In line with this, there's been a renewed focus on the Act East policy, which has greatly facilitated the promotion of economic, strategic, and cultural relationships with the Asia-Pacific region, especially the ASEAN nations. The dynamic relationship shared by the regions is validated by how they came together to respond to the pandemic. This collaboration during the times of crisis has helped in creating a stronger and more outcome-oriented alliance with the ASEAN countries, leading to greater engagement, including smoother physical as well as digital connectivity and higher people-to-people contact. Even as we are emerging from the impact of the pandemic, the Government of India is focused on continued vaccine diplomacy with the ASEAN nations and is working towards capacity enhancements and also taking forward various economic initiatives in the region. We in Indian industry firmly believe that businesses can play an important role as well in strengthening economic relationships between our two regions. India and ASEAN countries are home to 2.1 billion people with a combined GDP of about $9.3 trillion. These two regions obviously are a driving force in the emerging global economic world order. ASEAN nations are at different stages of economic development, and the diversity in economic status presents opportunities for collaboration across a value chain and across sectors, including in health, infrastructure, education, skilling, digital technologies, etc. From the standpoint of the industry, the Indo-ASEAN cooperation needs to have a strong thrust on areas such as trade, digital community, connectivity, transport, and logistics. In addition to cooperation on healthcare, it is well recognized that India and ASEAN collectively have an important role to play in contributing to the diversification of the global supply chain and making it more resilient, as CB also mentioned. As part of this endeavor, the Government of India has also reaffirmed its commitment to take collective actions in mitigating the economic impact of the pandemic and ensuring greater resilience in the region. With a shared vision for economic prosperity amongst the countries, a strategic plan on promoting business-to-business linkages is in identified sectors, and incentivizing economic and technological connects within the region assumes importance. I will briefly mention some of the salient points that this plan could incorporate. One is building regional supply chains for deeper regional integration would be a high priority. Two, for this to happen, augmenting logistics and infrastructure connectivity for trade needs to be emphasized. Three is accelerating MSME growth through global linkages must form a part of our agenda. And four is in healthcare cooperation, which will assume stronger focus going forward as we recover from the pandemic. And fifth, I would stress creating energy partnerships, both for renewable energy as well as frontier technologies such as green hydrogen, which are going to become increasingly vital. And finally, cooperation in disruptive technologies and digitization are essential for collectively moving ahead. These are some of the broad areas that would be discussed, I'm sure, in these 2 days in the summit. And I'm happy that the governments and industry members from India and ASEAN countries are participating, and I'm sure the summit discussions will guide strategies for the future. I look forward to the insights of the ministers, and thank you all for your participation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Narendran. I'd now like to invite our guests of honor for today to address us. I'd like to first invite His Excellency Dr. Vivian Balakrishnan, Minister for Foreign Affairs, Singapore, to address us, please.
Your Excellency, Dr. Jaishankar, Minister of External Affairs of the Republic of India, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank the Government of India and the Confederation of Indian Industries for inviting me to this inaugural session of the Indo ASEAN Business Summit and Expo. Minister Jaishankar and I just had fruitful discussions in New York, in fact, just last week, on ways to enhance cooperation between India and Singapore, and as well as with Southeast Asia in general. The links between India and Southeast Asia, in fact, date back many centuries, with trade and migration flowing primarily via ancient maritime routes. Our two regions remain closely connected today. People-to-people exchanges, economic ties, cultural links, religious affiliations, even culinary innovations anchor our ties. Singapore will be the ASEAN-India Dialogue Relations Country Coordinator for the next 3 years. We look forward to India's increased engagement with ASEAN under its Act East policy and expanding innovative new areas of collaboration. ASEAN and India remain committed to enhance ASEAN centrality and to promote an open and inclusive regional architecture. Since we established the ASEAN-India Free Trade Area in 2010, trade has almost doubled to US $77 billion in 2019. Even in the face of COVID-19, Singapore and India have worked together to maintain supply chains and to facilitate the flow of essential goods. For example, India continues to source industrial supplies from Singapore, and Singapore continues to import medical and health supplies from India. As countries and businesses around the world rethink our supply chains to emphasize resilience, we hope that India will remain open to the world and continue business-friendly policies. I'm encouraged by recent moves that will strengthen two-way trade and investment, such as the removal of retrospective taxation and the National Monetization Pipeline that aims to tap private sector investment for new infrastructure. ASEAN and India are now undergoing a scoping exercise on a potential review of the ASEAN-India Trade in Goods Agreement. We look forward to a more effective, user-friendly trade facilitative agreement that will benefit our economies for the long term. The pandemic has also seen the acceleration of digitalization, including through fintech, an area with much promise for increased collaboration. India's Ayushman Bharat Digital Health ID, launched by Prime Minister Narendra Modi just last week, is an excellent example of how digitalization can help improve people's lives. Singapore and India are also piloting digitalization and fintech initiatives. This includes Proxterra, a system that connects SMEs across borders and helps them source for customers. Another example is the linkage of our real-time payment system, Singapore's PayNow, and India's Unified Payments Interface, which will allow for low-cost cross-border remittances when it is launched in July 2022. Climate change and sustainable development have also become more pertinent. We should leverage synergies between the ASEAN Smart Cities Network and India's Smart Cities mission to make our cities more advanced and climate-friendly. The Green Coast Summit 2021, organized by the CII Sorabji Green Business Center, which is also taking place today, shows the strong interest of the Indian industry in sustainable development. This is another area where our companies can work well together. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, 2022 will mark the 30th anniversary of ASEAN-India relations. ASEAN and India have benefited tremendously from our complementary strengths. As we take stock of our past accomplishments and look forward into the future, let us endeavor to inject new impetus into our substantive partnership. Thank you, and I wish the Indo-ASEAN Business Summit and Expo every success. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Excellency. I now invite our next guest of honor, His Excellency Dato Lim Jock Hoi, Secretary General ASEAN, to address us, please.
Excellency Dr. S. Jayasankar, the Minister of External Affairs of the India, distinguished delegates in Jakarta, hope that all of you are keeping well and safe. I would like to warmly thank the government and the Confederation of Indian Industry in inviting me to this India ASEAN Business Summit. Been a long-standing to ASEAN over the past 25 years since India's became a dialogue partner ASEAN. The relationships has grown stronger and our cooperation has transcended the realm of functional cooperation. In this regard, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to the Government of India for the generous contribution of $1 million to ASEAN COVID-19 Fund, Response Fund. Also, in 2020, India is ASEAN's seventh external foreign direct investment source for ASEAN. FDI inflow from India to ASEAN in the year 2020 amounted to 2.1 billion and it's recorded a 34.7% year-on-year increase despite the challenging situation that we face due to COVID-19. However, in 2020, our two-way merchandise trade has decreased by 14.9% year-on-year, while India remains as ASEAN's seventh largest trading partner, with total trade amounting to 65.6 billion. I believe there is room for us to expand our trade and economic relations. ASEAN and India have agreed to review the ASEAN-India Trade in Goods Agreement, or ATIGA, to make it more user-friendly, simple, and trade facilitative for business. We are hopeful that this effort can increase the flow of goods between ASEAN and India, address and reduce the barrier effect on non-tariff measures, support a resilient and connected supply chain, and ultimately strengthen the post-pandemic economic recovery. While it is unfortunate that India has to opt out of the regional comprehensive economic partnerships, a move that we completely understand, we, however, continue to value India not only as the original RCEP participating country, but more importantly, for its role of India in the regional value chain. We therefore hope that India does not completely close its mind to rejoining RCEP when the right time comes. RCEP remains open to India's participation anytime it so decides to be a part of this mega undertaking. Allow me then to underscore the important contribution of the private sector in realizing the objective of free trade agreements and in taking them to the international trade arena to further deepen trade activities. While I urge the private sector to take advantage of the opportunity made available by these free trade agreements, I would also be very pleased to hear any feedback from the private sector so that we can join hands together to resolve issues and improve relevant measures to facilitate trade and investment between both sides. Additionally, I would like to encourage India enterprises to expand their business cooperation to ASEAN. One example of doing this is for the Indian pharmaceutical industry to expand their operations to the ASEAN member states, as these are essential goods that are highly needed to address the pandemic in the region. India is the third largest manufacturer of pharmaceutical products by volume and is ranked 14th by value. In 2020, ASEAN signed an agreement to relax non-tariff measures for trade of essential goods during COVID-19 pandemic. And at the 53rd ASEAN Economic Ministers meeting in September 2021, we have added 107 products into the list of essential goods. We hope that the Indian private sector can take this agreement as another incentive to expand their businesses while also supporting the need for ASEAN to have a sufficient supply of the highly needed medicines, vaccine, and medical devices, not only to address the pandemic, but also be prepared should a similar public health emergency in the future. Further, we also look forward to nurture collaboration with Indian counterparts for application of digital technology in agriculture farming practices, promoting circularity and nature-based solution in soil management to capture carbon emission. And while digital technology has been recognized as a principal driver for innovative, sustainable, and economic growth, we believe that our enhanced cooperation in digital area would unleash immense benefits for both sides. Digital infrastructure development, apply digital technologies, and digital literacy and skills are the prominent area of cooperation between ASEAN and India. Lastly, I do hope that engagement platform between private sector from both India and ASEAN can be intensified and go beyond meetings and seminars. I suggest that for the next business summit, the program would include also business matching activities, either on-site or virtual, to allow India and ASEAN enterprises to meet their counterparts, and hopefully the dialogue can be materialized into actual trade deals. Closing, let me take this opportunity to once again thank the Government of India and the Confederation of Indian Industry for organizing this event. And I'm looking forward to further strengthening our relations through concrete and practical public and private sector collaboration, which will enhance business opportunity for ASEAN and India. Thank you very much, and I wish the India ASEAN Business Summit this year a great success.
Thank you, Excellency. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now have the address by our chief guest, Dr. S. Jaishankar, External Affairs Minister, Government of India.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a matter of great pleasure to address the inaugural session of the ASEAN-India Business Summit 2021. This event is an outcome of the partnership of the CII with MEA. I commend the organizers for bringing together a wide array of participants drawn from government, business, chambers, enterprises, and think tanks. Our collective expectation is that this gathering would deliberate on the challenges and opportunities in ASEAN-India business relations. India's ties with the ASEAN are rooted in history, geography, and culture. What has energized them in recent years is a growing awareness of the potential they hold for our mutual interests and development. As our cooperation grew in the course of the last 25 years, new facets and domains emerged for collaboration. Connectivity and security are among the more notable of the later additions. As a result, our Look East policy matured into an Act East one. Its success is reflected in drawing India more comprehensively into the Indo-Pacific. There is no doubt that the ASEAN is one of the major hubs for India's global economic engagement. As it develops, it is natural that we would like to revisit the level of ambition that we have set for the partnership. That is also influenced by autonomous changes in the region. But what has given this objective a new urgency is the necessity to reimagine our cooperation in the light of the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic obviously provides the backdrop for how most countries approach both their economic policies and their global outlook now. After all, it has disrupted our supply chains, impacted our manufacturing, affected our trade, and veritably ruined many services sectors. These developments have not just altered various dimensions of our day-to-day business, they have even shaped our way of life. From the prolonged crisis of the last 2 years, 4 areas have come into sharp focus for international business cooperation. 1, resilient and reliable supply chains. 2, health security. 3, digital for development. And 4, green and sustainable recovery. They should constitute the core agenda for us. The uncertainties that we have all experienced since the beginning of 2020 cannot just be wished away, nor can we assume that they are a one-time phenomenon. Therefore, we are tasked with responding to the immediate repercussions, even as we are compelled to plan for the future. A large part of the answers, both short-term and beyond, lies in diversification, expansion, and transparency. De-risking our national economies will only be possible if we achieve a strong measure of success quickly in that regard. COVID-19 has brought out many inadequacies in the global health system. Meaningful partnerships, sharing of advanced technologies, collaboration in vaccine and pharmaceutical production, capacity building, and transparency in health information are all part of the answers. And in all of this, the role of businesses is critical. Crisis can often be the basis of creativity, and our endeavor should be to come out of this stronger. Take the challenge of the COVID itself. India has succeeded in developing the world's first DNA vaccine for COVID-19. Another mRNA vaccine is in the final stages, as also a nasal vaccine. Our global collaborations have enabled us to emerge as a major vaccine production center for the world. In fact, we have also seen innovative methods of collaboration, including an initiative agreed upon by the Quad countries. This could have significant benefits for nations of the Indo-Pacific. Apart from vaccines, Indian pharmaceutical manufacturing stepped up to the challenge by ramping up production for medicines that were in great demand. All this was happening even as we simultaneously transformed the public health system in India. The fact is that health has emerged as a more serious priority for all societies. Business must recognize the ensuing opportunities. The compulsions of the COVID era have made us all much more digital. The strengthening of digital connectivity, both with ASEAN and in the larger Indo-Pacific, therefore requires even greater salience. The templates of that could draw on the framework that govern existing development partnerships. On its part, India can offer science and technology-based innovations to help the region, as the scale and costs of our solutions are indeed very attractive. COVID-19 has also given an additional impetus to the diversification of the global value chain that was already in progress. India's campaign for an Atmanirbhar Bharat, or a self-reliant India, resonates with our quest to become a democratic and trustworthy partner for global industrial resiliency. At the same time, we need to take full advantage of building back better by ensuring a greener economic recovery. The importance that we attach to this topic is also reflected in the fact that it is the subject of one of this year's EAS Leaders Statement, which is being co-sponsored by us. India has a strong record on climate action and has an ambitious vision, including for renewables and green hydrogen. Cooperating more closely on sustainable development also lies at the heart of our collaboration on Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative and ASEAN Outlook on Indo-Pacific. Even otherwise, significant socioeconomic changes were underway in our larger region. The COVID pandemic has clearly accelerated them. It is important that we, India, the ASEAN, and our relationship, we recognize that a different world awaits us. It is one that puts greater premium on trust and transparency, resilience and reliability, as also on choices and redundancy. Our contemporary conversations will be relevant only if we adequately capture these emerging concerns. The centrality of ASEAN to the Indo-Pacific and the importance of India-ASEAN relations are self-evident. But if they have to continue to be salient, then we must strive to go beyond ideas and concepts that have outlived their shelf life. On its part, India's economic recovery is impelled by reform in various areas, including manufacturing, labor, agriculture, education, skills, and of course, improving the ease of doing business. We aspire to be a more effective engine of growth and a part of a reliable and resilient supply chains. International cooperation, especially among businesses, will be very much a key to the better world that we all seek. India and ASEAN can surely work together more closely to this end. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Jaishankar. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to a close of the session. Thank you all for joining us for this inaugural session, and we look forward to your 2 days of continued support. Thank you and have a good day.